Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Rowe.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Miller.
Present.
Councilman Racy.
Here.
Councilman Porter.
Present.
Councilman Sanders.
Here.
Councilman Gabriel.
Present.
Councilman Webster.
Present.
Mayor, you do have a quorum with all 7 members present. The first item is item 1, to approve the agenda.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I'm asking that we table the one item on the agenda regarding the bid awards till next meeting.
For what reason? Or
I think that we need a little bit more time to do some more research on that matter.
I'll support.
okay. It's been moved and supported to table item 4A until the next meeting, which is March 20th. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that going to leave us time to execute if we need to?
Mr. Queen? Yes. It would? Okay. All right then. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. You want to do a roll call, please?
Okay, this was a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Miller, supported by Councilman Gabriel, to table item 4A until the March 20th meeting. The first to vote is Mayor Pro Tem Miller.
Yes.
The second is Councilman Racy.
No.
Councilman Porter.
Yes.
Councilman Sanders.
Yes.
Councilman Gabriel.
Yes.
Councilman Webster.
No.
Mayor Rowe.
No.
It did pass. There were 3 noes and 4 yeses.
Okay. Anyone in the audience here who was for the refuse millage budget item? We will be putting that on the March 20th agenda, so you may leave if you wish. Thank you.
All right. The next item is item 2. City Council minutes. Item 2A are the regular meeting minutes of February 20th.
Move approval. Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Gabriel, supported by Councilman Webster. Any amendments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is item 3, public hearings. Item 3A is a public hearing to consider a brownfield redevelopment plan for Metro Storage at 3577 Michigan Avenue.
And that'll be presentation by our Community Development Director.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, members of the audience. Before you this evening to talk about a project that you're all aware of, the Metro Storage Project. This is a public hearing for you to hear input, followed by your approval on the brownfield if you so choose. I just want to give you a little bit of a history. We do have Tim and Jake Judge that are here tonight. Thank you again for your investment in the community. Jenny, and I forgot your first name. Elizabeth from PM Environmental. So I'm going to go through kind of a history. We'll take questions, and then if there are any council questions, I can certainly have PM come up and explain to you what I may have messed up. Just so you know, currently we're talking about, as Matt mentioned, 33577. You're all familiar with the property in front of the police department. This is a parcel that is currently tax exempt, so 0 tax dollars are collected. Following the development, it is estimated that the taxable value will be $1.4 million. Just to give you kind of an idea, the property had a service or gas station on it previously. The subject property is identified by the state of Michigan MDEQ as having leaking underground storage tanks. So therefore, this is considered a facility, and this must be remediated. There will be development of 3 self-storage buildings, including one 60,578 square foot building, one single-story 10,403 square foot building with a connected roughly 2,500 square foot office. The total investment is $3 million. They're looking at, during the construction phase, there would be 100 jobs created through the trades, and then following the construction phase, there would be 3 permanent jobs on site, individuals that will be actual employees of Metro Storage. What we have before us this evening is the request to reimburse the developer for items that are eligible for reimbursement under the cleanup activities. The request is for a total of $321,118. So that is the requested reimbursement. And when you consider there's a $3 million investment, now there's a lot, I want to clear something up. This is not money the city is paying. This is money that he's giving us and we're giving back to him. So he'll make his normal, say, $100,000 a year tax payment. And then for the next 5 years, we will pay him a portion of that $321 back until he's reimbursed in full. Now, the impact is that this money would normally go into about 90% of it would go into the DDA fund. The DDA will receive a lower amount for the next 5 years with the brownfield project in with the brownfield plan in place. However, if there was no development, there'd be $0 collected. When that 5th year hits, we will have a choice to either continue to put money into a fund, which is called a revolving loan fund, or we will choose to just return the money into the DDA fund. That's something the Brownfield Board would consider. The advantage of creating a revolving loan fund is, and I'll give you a prime example, and this is for Judy, and we kind of talked about it a little bit before, if we are able to put a significant, say $300,000 a year away for a few years into a fund, and a building that was functionally obsolete or blighted, such as the Cadillac Apartments, we would have the ability to go through the process to declare the building, I guess, functionally obsolete or dangerous. Thank you, dangerous, Matt. That's the process. And then we would actually, once we had the ruling, we would have the funds available to demolish that site, and then it would be marketed for redevelopment. So the reason we're doing this tonight is because obviously this was city-owned property. We were unaware of the contaminants. Obviously through the environmental phase 1 study, they discovered contaminant. And this was a significant increase to the project costs. So I'm glad we were able to work with Tim, propose this great economic development tool, and keep him at the table. So, Matt, if you want to open the public hearing.
This is a public hearing, and again, if you come forward to address the council, we'd appreciate your name and the street you live on.
Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions regarding this? Please step forward.
Good evening to the mayor, the council, the residents of the city of Wayne. Question about the funds used for the demolition. Will this be coming directly out of city revenue, city tax dollars, or is this something that is grant money that is allocated from the state of Michigan or from a federal demolition grant? Because I know the city of Detroit had gotten dollars for home demolitions. I was wondering if that is similar here for the city of Wayne, or if that is directly out of taxpayer dollars.
We aren't going to have any demolition. This is vacant property right now.
So with the Cadillac Apartments.
Oh, that was just an example she was giving.
Okay.
If we had the revolving fund set up.
Okay, great.
No. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other questions?
Madam Mayor?
Yes. This is for the residents right now.
Sorry, thank you.
This money for that we're going to do the assist and clean up this property so they can build this $3 million so facility. We're going to $321,018. Where does that money come from?
Lori, do you want to speak again? Okay. Is that the only question that you have, Mr.?
No, I have many, and I wish not the clock be running. As stated, this is a public hearing.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
All right. And what is your other questions?
Sort of intimidating. It's a follow-up question to once you give me the answer to that. I'll let, if you can remember them all.
I'm writing them down.
It says that once you stated something to the fact that once you go ahead with this grand idea, that the money will go to the DDA fund, and that they were favorable with this motion. So, do we have paperwork and minutes from the DDA committee that does state those facts, that they are in favor of it, and that is their wish? The DDA fund in the past here in the city of Wayne was at one time, nobody knew where it was. You had to put on 3D glasses. Madam Mayor.
Yes, I'm listening.
The clock, I asked for it to please stop.
There's not a rule that states that public hearings are open-ended discussions with the time of the council. There is a 3-minute rule for anyone addressing the council on any matter. And actually, for general items for consideration, there's actually a rule there's no rule that states that we have to take any discussion on general items either, but the mayor is often allowed for discussion at those items. So.
Madam Mayor, this is not a general item of discussion. As I stated last time I addressed you at the podium, this is a public hearing, therefore the public hearing should occur prior to an agendaed meeting, at which time the public is allowed to stop, come forward and ask questions, and you are required to give an answer.
As I stated, if you will give us your questions in your 3 minutes, then Miss Gwen will then respond to them, and that won't take up your 3 minutes. So if you give us your questions.
I barely started and I was at 1 minute and 24 seconds. I tell you this.
But I have your questions, please.
Yeah, you got them. But you see, it's a public hearing. If I ask the question and I don't like the answer, or I think it's inappropriate, I should have the right to ask you, could you clarify that? And at this time, with this clock going here, a person doesn't have to. But anyway, back to the DDA funds. When I stated we don't know where the money is. You at one time here in the city, while you sat on that there as a council person, know that we had uncontrollable amount of money in excess of $1 million. And there had not been any meeting of our DDA people for over 1 year. And you didn't know where the money was.
This is not, we're talking about this specific project. The public hearing is on this specific project, not on what's happened in the past. So please, I would like you to give us your questions on this project.
I'm coming to it.
You're going around it a long way.
Well, that's to educate you what you missed out last time, because I didn't. So she states that the money goes into a revolving fund, and we'll then put the money into the DDA fund. I'd like to know why we can't, since we're in such strapped dire needs, why don't we take this money and put it into our general fund? You don't have...
First of all, the Act does not allow that. I'm going to answer that question right now.
I don't need a lawyer to jump in and say this.
Please.
And I'm going to give my opinion, Mayor.
Hey, Sheila, we didn't ask for an opinion.
And I'm giving
and we didn't ask for an opinion, Mrs. Mayor.
Please.
And you gavelled that down.
It is absolutely my job to counsel the city on legal matters pertaining to city business. Whether or not 3 minutes, whether or not the 3-minute time can apply as to the public hearing.
Please, Mr. Blackwell, you do not have the floor.
I've already given an opinion to this council and to the residents of the city of Wayne that this council voted to make public that said 3 minutes are allowed to be had Mayor, point of order. I'd ask that the mayor call a point of order.
Please, Mr. Blackwell, will you please sit back there and be quiet? Please be quiet.
Can I ask my question?
Please ask your question. Please, I really want your question.
Yeah, and I really like to ask them. And we're trying to save money. I'm asking, she says the money will go into this DDA fund. I'm trying to ask an educated question. If we had money 4 or 5 years ago in excess of $1 million and you didn't have any committee overseeing it, there's a finance man here that straightened out your finances pretty good for you. Why are we giving an arbitrary people who we don't know who these DDA people are, no documentation, nothing from them, how it's going to run, and you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt for whatever we do on that. So if we make good on this, on the 321, give this person back some money, it's beyond the scope of you people. You people meaning the council people, some of you, that you didn't know that there was a gas station there. You're showing you the police department there, and everybody says, oh yeah, I remember that. That's where that gas station was. You had the friendship people over there.
We have your question. Could we have your question?
Yeah, I don't like your revolving fund. Explain that. Okay. This is not a credit card, so are you charging 24% interest, or how much are we, the citizens, going to get back on that? Okay, and is this money going to the general fund that we make? And I'm against any of this money not going to our general fund to pay off things that we owe, like your salaries.
Well, sir, if we put this money in the general fund, we would
One moment, please. Just answer his questions.
Yeah, I am. If we put this money in the general fund, it's illegal. This is tax dollars. These are tax dollars that are collected within the DDA district. Therefore, legally, according to the law, the money must stay within the DDA district or in the DDA fund. If we chose to take this money and put it into the general fund, we would be in a lot of trouble with the law. And I'm not willing to do that, and I'm sure the council's not, as Brita was trying to explain. To answer his other questions, the DDA money, I explained that. The Brownfield Board did vote on this plan. They did not vote on whether or not they want the revolving loan fund to exist in 5 years. That's very premature. It was just discussed. I was just sharing information about an opportunity down the road. The money from the property owner, the money that goes into the revolving loan fund, if we ever chose to do it, or the money that comes to pay the property owner back, comes from the developer, which is Mr. Judge. This is his money that he's paying. He'll make his normal yearly tax payment, and we will cut him a check back over the next 5 years to pay him that $321,000. And I think that's it.
Okay, thank you.
And if
Thank
you have anything on here.
Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Eric Clearman from Winterfred. I'm just wondering, we sold the property to them for $1. Why are we on the hook now for $321,000 to them? Why do we owe that to them? Why didn't they do their due diligence before they spent the $1 buying the property to figure out they were going to have to pay to have it cleaned up?
That's a very good question. So, as I explained earlier, we don't owe them anything. This is an economic development tool that many communities use to get new development in their communities. They've done it all over the state of Michigan. So that's normal. When someone buys a piece of property, they have a due diligence period, and at that time they do their environmental testing. Exactly what Mr. Judge did. He determined there was contamination. I'm sorry, but this is adding an extra $321,000. No, sorry, it's way more than $321,000 it's adding to his project. That's just what he's asking for reimbursement on. If we didn't utilize this economic development tool given to us by the state of Michigan for municipalities to use, we would have lost this project. So we would continue to sit on a vacant piece of land that we have to maintain and collect no tax dollars. So we are not paying him anything. We're paying him his money back. In return, we're getting a piece of property that's going to generate approximately $104,000 a year in new tax revenue, which is exactly what the city needs.
And if I may add to that,
Yes.
Mayor, this was previously owned by the city.
Right.
The city owned it when it was contaminated. As an owner of said property, we would have potentially been liable to clean up that property as the owner, strictly liable, which would have been an extreme cost to the city that now Mr. Judge is taking on and turning this into property that's now going to be taxable. So I think that's important to note as well.
It is a good thing for us that we're going to be making money in the long term,
Yes,
spending money.
yes.
But I'm curious, did anybody try to negotiate a better deal? Or did we just take the 321 they asked for?
I can just tell you that is it PM or PMI? PM advocated very well on behalf of Mr. Judge in trying to obtain much more than the $321,000. So the amount that we would even suggest that be brought to council was negotiated by Paul Bond at my office, who is an environmental attorney. He was extremely instrumental in negotiating with PM the amount that we would even be comfortable presenting to council. And yes, they asked for much more than $321,000.
Okay, great. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? We will close the public portion of the meeting. Council?
There's a motion for a resolution is necessary.
Motion to approve.
Could you please speak up, Councilman Racy?
Motion to approve. Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Racy, supported by Councilman Webster. Is there any discussion or questions? Yes, Councilman Sanders.
We are not specifically right now voting on whether we're going to create a revolving fund, correct?
No, absolutely not.
And that is really, that has to come from the development board to present to us, correct?
Correct, that is correct.
And that won't happen until after the first 5 years of reimbursement.
That would happen in
correct?
the 6th year.
Right. Is it inappropriate for you to send to us or whatever? I don't know if it can be made public. I guess I am in full support of this. But as I've spoke to several residents, and I 100% agree that he did his due diligence. We sold it to him for $1. I just need to be comfortable in myself that he has some equity in the property development himself, other than the development of the actual building itself. And so if we could be made aware, I'm not saying publicly, you know, what the total cleanup is, maybe privately or sent to us or whatever, if it can't be made public, so I know that I'm comfortable in that we're just not giving away the city.
So the original ask, I believe, was close to $920,000, I believe.
I'm good then.
Of eligible activities. And if I could, Brita, and I'm just going to expand on what Brita said briefly, I've done several brownfield projects with Mr. Bond. He is a professional. He never recommends that you reimburse any more than 10% of the total project costs. And that's how we got down to the 321.
Thank you. And if I might add a bigger scope of the question, in response to one of the residents, a brownfield development, and I know this has to go into the DDA and it can't go in the general fund because it's in the DDA district, but generally speaking, a brownfield development doesn't have to be in the DDA, correct?
So, good question. So, the entire city at this point, now that we have this board in place, is eligible for brownfield activities. So, if it's somewhere over on Hannon and Van Born, or I hate to use an example because someone will say there's contaminated property.
Right.
So, anywhere in the city, Councilman, anywhere in the city now, if there's a building that is one, either functionally obsolete, or two, contaminated, considered a facility, we can utilize this tool to get new development in.
And that would go in the general fund then?
If it's not in the DDA,
Right.
correct.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Got a frog in my throat.
Tell him to leave.
I am right now. I do want some clarification. Do they have an estimate cost of the total cleanup?
They just said that.
Okay, is it-
900
is it-
the original ask was 920. The cost cleanup's more than 920.
Yes.
They asked for 920,000 of eligible activities, so we got them down to the 10%.
Okay. And so I'm kind of confused a little bit about the 361,000.
321.
321, I'm sorry. Where is that figure?
So that
for this?
is, we asked them to stay within 10% of the total project cost.
Okay.
So they took the list of eligible activities, which was close to $1 million, and myself and Mr. Bond asked him to please only include items that are specifically relative to the cleanup of the property.
Okay.
So there were a lot of things that they had to eliminate. So this is moving of the soil. This is, all the things that the remediation, so to speak. So it's 10%.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I
Okay.
got a question.
Oh.
If this is approved tonight, what's the game plan of when would this start?
I will let Mr. Judge speak to that, if I can.
Okay.
But we're in the public hearing, so.
Yes.
The public hearing is
been
over. Is it okay for him
closed.
to answer it, Matt? Okay. You want to talk
He already
about
says.
estimated
Yes.
We're hoping to have a groundbreaking ceremony the first part of May.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone else?
Mayor Rowe,
Yes.
so the cleanup process would take how long? I guess what he was asking, I was curious as well, was what's the total timeline of the cleanup, the groundbreaking, opening, if that's possible? Just, we're all anxious to have you on board here in the community.
Thanks.
And,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I
for that
appreciate
reason.
it. And I wanted to make it a win-win. There was,
And it is.
like I was telling Lori, there's other cities I couldn't look to do that, but I do like dealing with Wayne, and it's a good location, and
Appreciate that.
But so your question was how we're gonna.
Please.
Your question was when are we going to start the project? We're trying to start it by May 1st, right?
Yes.
And then what we would do is the cleanup would take place as part of the site work and the site utilities. So as we're digging it out, we got to haul a lot away and do a lot of testing. We got to dig it quite deep and really truck off a lot of stuff. And it's very expensive to take to landfills. And the testing is, if you have questions for PM Environmental, they can speak to that too. But to give you an idea, I just had a small area I had to do on a project that I did a few years ago. I had $100,000 just in a tiny little area to clean up. And all the regulations that, of course, you guys don't set the regulations for all that, but the criteria and the cost of just cleaning this stuff up is very expensive. And sometimes it makes us developers want to walk away from a project, But then when Lori started talking to my consultants, PM Environmental, they said, hey, let's try to capture this stuff. And and the site's very expensive to develop anyways. It's such a we got to put underground manifolds to store the water because there's not enough area there, and the site is 2.5 feet different in elevation when we get done with it. And so it's then to take on additional environmental cleanup costs on top of that, really, as a developer, I could find land that's flat, even easier to develop. And so I honestly, I'm just trying to make it a win-win for everybody. I'm not trying to come in here and just get something that is not mine. But if I put the money out, if I can get it back, it makes it worth it to me too. And and like I say, I really enjoy my interaction I've had here, and I appreciate the questions from the citizens too. It makes sense to clarify this. I mean, I don't fault them. I would ask as many questions at the same time. So yeah. Okay.
So you're anticipating, hopefully, what's your target date to open?
Ideally, around May 1st, plus
But
or
I
minus.
mean, when are you anticipating maybe
1
the
year,
building being done?
1 year from there.
1 year? Okay.
Yeah.
All
1
right.
year, no
Okay.
problem from that
That's
time
good.
frame there.
Okay.
So.
Good.
Mayor?
Well, thank you. Yes.
If I can ask one more question of you, of the
One
city
more.
attorney. Yeah.
One more.
Oh, I apologize. I thought this was a debate. Or I don't know if to ask him or the city attorney, has he secured the appropriate things from, are we past that at that point where he secured the appropriate things from Wayne County?
As far as from the property's perspective, he is 100% the owner of all parcels that he will be building on at this time.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Because the county, remember we had those county lands
Yeah,
that
I
had.
remember that too. Yeah.
Yep. We closed on it second week of December, I believe, on all those properties.
Because there were some Wayne County parcels that we had to buy through the middle of it too, and
Thank you.
yeah,
Yes.
it was kind of a
It was an interesting
lot of
transaction.
entitlement work to be done on this one, So
A lot of background work
yes.
that went into this.
Yeah. Is that it for me? Was that
Yes,
enough?
yes, it
Okay.
is. Thank you very much, Mr. Judge, and again, welcome to the community. All right, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Judge. Yep, yes, you can go now.
Nice seeing you guys.
Nice seeing you, too.
Thanks for coming.
Okay, the next item is item 5, business licenses and permits. Item 5A is to approve a special event permit with the Wayne Rotary Club for the 2018 Gowdy Park Summer Concert Series.
Move to approve.
Support.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Miller, supported by Councilman Gabriel. Any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm going to abstain from this vote just because I'm the current president of the Rotary.
But you have no financial interest in this,
So
though.
I'm fine?
Yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
yeah, no, you have no financial interest. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
The next item is item 6, communications. Item 6A is a financial audit report summary from Brian Kammerer, Plant Moran. Hi, Brian.
Welcome, Brian.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
You usually bring us good news.
No, today is definitely a day of good news. Hopefully you've got this PowerPoint in your packet already. I see a couple of you flipping through it. So your auditing firm is Allen C. Young and Associates. I think this was their second year performing the audit. They have given you an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that an auditor can provide. It is like getting an A on your report card. So what that unmodified opinion means is that the financial statements, in their opinion, after their testing and audit procedures, are clear and accurate and fairly represent and can be relied on what you as a city are presenting to the world as your financial statements. So those documents are based on the opinion of the auditor independently. Your financial statements are trustworthy. In addition to their opinion on the statements themselves, they also issue a letter that talks about the internal controls of the city. There were no material weaknesses identified. So again, that's an A+ on your report card. They did identify one, what's called a significant deficiency, which I know sounds worse than material weakness, but it's actually not. It's just us nerdy accounting, our nerdy accounting language. But the issue is very minor. Throughout their testing, they noted some invoices that had been approved for payment, but the department head, and it was across the city, it wasn't just one particular department head, didn't initial the invoice. So the process is it comes from the department head. Department head, by sending it to finance to be paid, is approving it. They just didn't put the initial on. Now, in my opinion, it's that your department heads are working overtime with being short-staffed and are putting in a heck of a lot of work, and a couple of those kind of clerical details fell through the cracks. I wouldn't be worried about it, and I hope you aren't either. There was one minor issue of compliance related to the budget. One item was over budget by $1,200. Again, not a big deal whatsoever. They had some suggestions. Number one was related to just the general fund budget in total. They are aware of your financial situation and what we've been dealing with for the last several years, and it was more of a just keep at it, keep doing what you're doing, cut costs, raise revenue, do what you can. The other item was about old outstanding checks, and so under Michigan law, uncashed checks that the city writes are supposed to be escheated to the state of Michigan, and so that is a process that's been on our list for a little while, and we just haven't gotten around to it with all the various things that finance has to deal with. So we will make every attempt to get that done after the budget, before the next audit. We'll try to shoehorn that project in there and get it done so that it doesn't recur next year. So now this overall very positive report is on the accuracy of your financials. It's not a comment on how strong your financial position is. So the general fund, now this is subtracting out the OPEB money, because remember in fiscal 2017, you used up the remaining amount of the OPEB trust to appropriately pay for OPEB costs. But without that OPEB money, general fund would have lost $591,000, which is an improvement from 2016. So in 2016, without that OPEB money, you lost $1.3 million. So that is a dramatic improvement in 1 year. Why is that? Number one, that was a full year of switching to Priority Health from your previous provider. There were several open positions that had been budgeted to be filled, but for whatever reason, we either could not or chose not to fill those positions. Departments are appropriately shifting work to other funds that have the means to pay for them. So DPW in particular, they can do work that affects the general fund, they can do work that affects water, they can do work that affects one of the street funds. Street funds and water and sewer have the means to pay for things right now, and so those folks are focusing their time more so. They're not ignoring general fund, but when they have the choice, they go do a project in one of the other funds that can pay for it. And a lot of their time is budgeted to general fund. It just means general fund doesn't have to spend that money. Tightening up overall on overtime, and then limiting of capital outlay. You're only buying something when you absolutely need to. It'd be great if we could put more into roads or put more into equipment, but things being what they are, you're doing the right thing. So fund balance, how much is left? Now, if you recall this graph from last year when we were projecting out the next year, so it was to the far right of the graph, that was red. So a year ago, we were thinking that by the end of fiscal 18, you'd be in a deficit. And I'm very happy to tell you that because you're not filling those positions and not doing the capital and making really smart choices about healthcare when you can, about the pension, renegotiating contracts, doing all that. You are, right now, you should finish fiscal 18 in the black. You should still have fund balance. So granted, it's still declining, but it is declining at a significantly slower pace than what it was previously and what we had been projecting. So keep it up. You're doing the right things. And unfortunately, turning around the finances of a city, it's not a speedboat, it's a cruise ship. Cruise ships take very slow, wide turns to change directions, but you're doing it. So this is our old friend Jeeves. You've seen him in several of our presentations over the last several years. You're still you have a cause for concern. You have to stay diligent, but it's not the end-all apocalypse that we were talking about the last couple of years. You still have a ways to go, don't get me wrong. But I am happy to tell you, you are making progress. Related to the unfunded legacy costs, your net pension liability decreased during the year from 50 million to 47 million, or actually just under 48 million. That's not taking into account yet the changes to the multipliers that were negotiated in the last round of contracts. It's really more of a result of just the improved market over the last 2 years. And then the OPEB liability has not changed yet because you're required to get a valuation every other year. And so because of GASB 75, which is effective for your upcoming June year end, you will be getting a new valuation. Problem is, because of the continuing lawsuit, we don't know what information to put into the valuation yet. So once that is resolved for good, then the valuation can be commissioned. Changing gears, the water and sewer fund, short-term indicators continue to get better. Although in fiscal 17 cash slightly decreased, but that's because you replaced the water meters, and that was over $1 million. The change in cash was less than that by far. It was like maybe 100,000 or so. I'd have to look, but your balance sheet is looking stronger. You still have water and sewer's share of the pension and the OPEB liabilities, but a year ago the unrestricted net position was in the red. You had a deficit of 1.6, and now you are in the black. So I would say that you're still not to where we want you to be. We still want water and sewer to get stronger, but it's been a big change over the last 3 years. And so you need to keep going with that. A year ago, we performed we created a model, a 5-year model for the water and sewer, and that probably should be updated again as part of the budget process. Okay. Definitely not as long or detailed of an undertaking as it was to create the model in the first place. But you want to have the most up-to-date information you can to support whatever rate increase that you should have. And you will continue to need an annual rate increase. We're just going to keep trying to keep it down as low as possible. Okay. Some other items of note. So there's still a compensated absence liability for all of the employees of the city earning that benefit. It only changed by about $50,000 from a year before, but it's $1.8 million. The Ford tax settlement, There's still $443,000 left to be paid. 383 of that will come out of the DDA. 3 years of payments remaining. The next payment isn't until 2019. And then your 2 street funds have just under $1.6 million combined. That is restricted. It can only go toward roads. Can't take it to general fund to do anything else. But you do have some ability to put some money back into your streets. So that's it as far as the audit presentation. I know further down the agenda we have a budget amendment. I can tell you really quickly what it is, and then you don't need to hear from me again today if that's okay. So the
Is that
amendment.
okay with council for him to give us?
Is he going to take off though, or can we ask?
Oh, I'll sit down if you have other
Right,
questions.
no, but he just will talk to us about 7C right now.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Should we just move the agenda, or move item 7C up to 7A and just move the others down? Because that's next in line.
If you'd
Or we
like to
can
make
just
a
speak on
motion.
We need a motion to do that.
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Move to
7C.
7C up to 7A, correct?
Yes, okay,
I'll support.
okay. It's been moved and supported to move 7C up to 7A. Any questions, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So throughout the year, we try to do it every quarter. We go back through the budget with the fine-tooth comb and do some projections based on where you are at presently year to date. If you're trending low, trending high, we want to make a little bit of a modification to the various line items of the budget. And so the amendment before you is really, we're just trying to correct course a little bit. If expenses are going to be are trending low compared to the budget, we're going to take some of the budget away because we don't need it. If we're trending a little bit high, we'll shift that money over to the lines that do. But in total, the amendment to general fund is an overall decrease of spending, almost $850,000. And so what that is taking away the positions that have not been filled to date through February. If you do fill them, feel free. And we can bring back another amendment going the other way for whatever we might need in addition before the end of the year. There's some revenue items like adjusting the personal property tax reimbursement, which was part of the last amendment, and we just refined it a little bit now. Some other equipment purchases that weren't trending the same as what we had thought originally. Some healthcare benefits in a couple departments that we had overestimated early on, and now we're just truing it up. And then there's a larger one related to spending of the Wayne County First Contract Grant. You can still spend it, but you're sitting on quite a bit of money from Wayne County. And to date, the spending isn't anywhere near what we had originally budgeted because we'd put the whole thing into the budget. So there's still a couple $100,000 left in the now amended budget. If youth assistance spends that, by all means, keep spending it, put the programs in place for the youth, because there is still another $455,000 that we can put back in the budget without hurting any other part of the general fund. The whole point was that we want to get you to a point where you're seeing a more realistic picture as we get closer to the end of the year of what the end of the year is going to look like. And so projected ending fund balance June 30, 2018 is now just under $2 million after this amendment, which is still almost $1 million loss for the year. But if you recall from the original budget that we talked about last May, that original budget was putting you in the hole, into the negative, into the red. And so thanks to all of the savings as part of 2017, thanks to all of the savings that are so far in 2018, and spending underneath those projections, you still should have $2 million of fund balance come June 30. The other funds are very minimal. It's more of these just little course corrections. And there's a description in your materials. Really nothing significant that I think you need to take up time discussing. I'm happy to take any questions you have on either the audit, presentation, current state of the budget, anything you would like.
Okay.
Could we have a motion
yes,
Thank
for
you. For item 7C?
7C, okay.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilman Gabriel and supported by Councilman Racy to to approve the budget amendments. Is there discussion or questions for Plant Moran? Yes, Councilman Sanders.
I don't know if it's just for Brian or Mr. Camilleri, I'm sorry. Do we have any idea what the outstanding water bills are?
The outstanding receivables?
Yes. As far as past due?
I don't know about past due. I can tell you what they were June 30, 17, but as of today, I don't have that information at my fingertips.
Overtime in fire department, you brought in here about the overtime, managing overtime. A while back, we were going to get a regular update on overtime being used by the fire department. Do we still get that?
Your reports, Friday reports, yes.
Thank you. Yep.
Yes, you're welcome.
And fixed costs, are we, the water rates, you said we're going to have a need for increase in, slight and keep it as low as possible. Is there a way to start looking at decreasing the amount of the fixed costs that we charge residents?
Well, you need the same amount of cash one way or the other, whether it's through fixed or variable. It's a policy issue as to what that percentage is. There is a ceiling we can't go over, but there is no floor. So if, at council's wish, if you don't like what the current fixed charge is, it can be lowered, but it's going to mean the variable cost goes up. At the end of the day, we need the same amount of cash, no matter what the source.
Understanding of that, I just feel as though paying for what you get, or paying for what you use, is a more fair and equitable way than to charge someone just based on, even if it's absorbently more, you're paying for what you're using, as opposed to just paying because you have water.
Well, so the argument is that there is a cost, whether you use 1 drop or 1 million gallons. Mm-hmm. It's the same cost to send your bill to your house, to fix any repairs, your internal finance department, whatever decisions the city manager's office makes, that affects everybody equally. And so there is some fixed cost that is fair to be shared equally. But as to where that threshold is, it is a matter of policy for the city. Do you want to cover 100% of that cost or somewhere down to 0? It's entirely up to the city.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mayor,
yes.
It was brought up to my attention recently regards to folks that overpaid or were overcharged on their taxes. And is there a dollar amount, or is there something there that we will need to or may need to reimburse because it was overestimated?
Related to the property taxes or to the water and sewer on the taxes?
No, just property taxes.
So there shouldn't be any overcharging of property taxes. If anyone pays more than what their assessment was, or the tax levy was, they should be refunded the difference immediately. There's nothing that the city should keep.
I think it's more referring to not having, maybe not being charged homestead versus non-homestead.
I'm not aware of that situation. I think that's something that this assessor needs to weigh in on.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, it is. So that would be something that we may need to make sure we're good with, and so that when we think about our, including that in the budget.
Well, your city assessor sets and reconciles the tax levy, and so if there was any kind of issue with that, it would be the assessor that would address it, and then finance would then handle it with the assessor's help.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
You were talking at the last meeting, I don't remember, about an organization that's forming, or a group or a business that talks, because you said statewide they're losing millions of dollars.
Yes, that was the City of Holland.
Can we look into that or get the report on that?
Actually, I did send them an email to see if they're moving forward with that, so I'll follow up on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
I guess I don't know if it's really a question. I just want to thank our city administration and our department heads and all of our employees for making the sacrifices they've been doing to even make this possible. I mean, it's not, we're not everywhere we want to be, but we're headed in the right direction. I just want to thank everybody.
Anyone else? No? Okay. Well, thank you very, oh, we now need to vote on, no, we voted on it.
No, we
No, we
do
didn't.
need
Okay.
to vote.
Voted. Okay, all in favor of the amended budget?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
You too. Thank you.
So we're moving the agenda now to item 7B, which is to approve an agreement with Streamco Inc. for the use of 237 spaces in the parking structure. This will be subject to additions and revisions acceptable to the city attorney.
Okay. Could I have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Support.
Okay. It has been moved and supported. Are there any questions for Ms. Gwen?
I have just
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Councilman.
Are these spots going up or down? I can't remember with this.
What was the question? I apologize.
They had spots before, correct?
No.
Okay.
This is a new company that's coming in. There's
Oh,
an
you know what? I'm
excess
looking at
of
the wrong one. Never mind.
product available in the Focus. Mark Chevrolet will be occupying floors 1 and 2. They have approximately 100 spots. And then the remainder, so floors 5, 4, and 3 will be utilized by Streamco to store the vehicles. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was looking at the wrong one. That's why.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
maybe ask
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Goin some questions here. Can you, how many parking spots we have in that parking structure total? Is it
384?
385?
384.
Okay. And also I was wondering was that I noticed that they lowered the responsibility of, I think it was
Mark
electric.
Chevrolet.
The electric or there is lighting inside the parking structure?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that, to be honest with you.
The reason, if I can, Mayor, the reason for the reduction is currently Mark Chevrolet is our only tenant.
Yes.
And they agreed to pay 50% or up to $500 each month, whichever is less of the bill.
Okay.
It's only fair now with the new tenant coming in, and they're actually occupying quite a bit more space, and they will be using it, that they only pay 25%, so that each will pay 25%.
So new income will be from these two groups leasing space in that parking structure will come to approximately how much a month?
Well, it's $2,500, so it's $5 a spot.
Okay.
And Mark will still pay the same amount, 1,000. So it's $3,500 a month in rental fees, and then the $250 each or less in the electric costs. And I did look into the electric costs, and the electric bill was typically anywhere from $450 to $500 a month.
Okay, great. And how long is the lease going to be?
1 year.
1 year. Very good.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
do we still have this parking structure open for citizens' use?
Absolutely. The garage opens every day. The Department of Public Service or Works opens it up at 7 a.m. Currently, Dorsey Business School is parking anywhere from 5 to 6 cars in there a day, and it's open when our till the library closes, and then it is locked in the evening by the police department.
Thank you.
And if I could, Mayor, another really great thing about Streamco coming in, there'll be security. There's currently cameras. Yeah, there's currently cameras installed. Mark Chevrolet did make a significant investment in our garage and put cameras, security cameras. And now, and if I could, Ben Griffin is here on behalf of Streamco. So Ben, thank you for being here tonight. Yes.
What's not presented here is who is going to be responsible in case vandalism or damage is done to the
Each, according to the contract, each of the tenants does have a liability policy. And there has been significant damage, and that's why we have cameras in there now.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, one
Yes.
other question. So security there will now be 24/7?
If there are cars in the garage, there will be security. Can you answer that, Ben? I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Good evening. We are consultant logistic contractors for Ford Motor Company, and what this would be used for is when there's a rail car shortage or something. So it'd be brand new production vehicles stored in the facility. We'd have 24-hour security whenever there's vehicles there. And that's it. I mean, it'll be brand new Focuses now, and maybe down the road, brand new Rangers and Broncos.
These will be uniform security, just so that individuals can identify them as being who they are supposed to be.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
with this, I assume it's going to be some coming and going of the cars. Is it going to be operational just throughout the day when the garage is open, or are we going to turn the garage into 24
it could
hours?
Be 24 hours, but this is such a small lot for us. I mean, I can tell you with the rail car shortages, every OEM in the country right now is, we've got all over North America thousands of vehicles parked off site because of it. GMs and Fords, they'll come. It'll take them no time at all to put 237 cars in there, and then they'll just sit. There'll be brand new cars just sitting in there, and then when the rail cars show up, they'll come and get them and take them back, and then a few hours they'll have them back. Ship.
Do you expect to have cars in there at all times?
No. Probably. I hate to say it. I mean, but it's probably every couple months. Maybe more.
Okay.
They'll probably sit vacant about half the time and full half the time.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Motion's been made. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is now item 7C. This is to approve an amendment with Mark Chevrolet with a parking structure use agreement subject to the additions and revisions acceptable to the city attorney.
This is what? Yeah, okay.
I would move to approve.
Support.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Miller, supported by Councilman Porter. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
The next item is item 8, administration reports.
City Manager?
Through the mayor, or through the chair. Nancy loaded me up again this evening. She's really been busy. Senior Director. Thursday, April 5th, 2018, 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., Gems of Detroit. It's a Sometimes Traveler Club trip to Detroit for $100, visiting the Renaissance Center, Motown Museum, and eating at Slow's Barbecue. There's information here and out in the vestibule. The Sometimes Travelers event that I talked about a couple weeks ago, that's coming up as well. A matter of balance for those individuals who have concerns about falling. Classes for 2018 are on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and they're starting March 6th and they go through March 29th, and snacks are provided. These will be held at the Wayne Senior Services office at the Hype Recreation Center. So this is the green paper here. And then helping you take charge of your health. This is the Diabetes Path program that I discussed a couple weeks ago. It's a 6-week workshop to help those individuals who are having complications from diabetes. So, and I just wanted to thank council. I know that we just had a lot of discussion about budgets. Council's going to be meeting with myself and the finance team the week of the 19th. So thank you all for that. We look forward to sharing information and hearing your ideas and feedback. So we're trying to move this quickly, and I just want to thank Brian, the team, Katie, in the finance department. I mean, I know we're all stretched very, very thin, but thank you so much. It was a great job, and I think the audit was done quite well too. So, it's all coming together. So that's it this evening, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
I did
Yes.
have one item also.
Yes.
At the last council meeting, a question was asked regarding, that's okay, about the petitions that were submitted for the recall. And I wanted to kind of clarify that to the council and the public. We did receive one petition. I know 4 petitions were out circulating, but the city only received 1 from the county. The other 3, if it was signed, it was not turned in, so it was not the responsibility of the city to have them or to even secure them. So the petitions that were submitted to the county, and then they were in turn sent to the city. They were verified. Also, a copy was kept here, and they were kept under lock and key. There was also, just so you know, a memo was put out as soon as I got them to the 2 employees in my office about how to secure the petitions. And even if somebody was at the counter and was trying to peer at anything, to make sure if we were working on them to turn them over, those kinds of things. So I did take into consideration the privacy of the individual signing that petition. So once that was done, it was certified, the originals were sent back to the county, and that copy was kept here, and it's kept in a secure place in the clerk's office.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. One moment. Are there any other reports from any other department heads?
No, ma'am. Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. All right, then. Move the agenda.
Okay. The next item is citizens' comments or requests on items not on the agenda. Citizens are to limit their comments or requests to 3 minutes. The City Council asks that if you do have a question or concern, to bring it to the attention of the appropriate departments whenever possible. If you feel that the matter has not been resolved satisfactorily, you are encouraged to bring it to the attention of the city manager. And if still not resolved satisfactorily, to the mayor and the city council. The mayor, the city council, and department heads may not respond to the questions at the meeting, but will respond by the next city council meeting or as soon as possible once they've looked into the matter.
Okay. Mr. Blackwell, you had a question?
Well, it was under the administration report because I was going to ask the city manager, I'm doing it properly through the chair to the city manager. Was there any reason why HYPE did not plow the snow? Because I believe it was on page 23 of the contract, he's the tenant. He is responsible for the snow plowing. I mean, we're giving him $144,000 per year of our money to maintain that property. I mean, he's a not-for-profit. So, and another thing, since we're under comments, the city attorney, and I'm addressing the chair, I'm doing it properly through the chair. The city attorney said at not the last council, I believe, not the last council meeting, the one of February 6th, if I'm correct, that what I posed was not a proper legal question. It was under the citizens' comments and questions. It is a proper question. Legality has nothing to do with my question. It has everything to do with the answer. Answering my question about what is the definition of lawful order, I'm coming through the chair, addressing the chair to the city attorney. It's just a simple question. It's a lot easier to answer that question than trying to remove skunk stink from a bird dog. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Evening, Madam Mayor.
Yes. Good evening.
Comment. Mr. Keith Butkovich asked a question through 2 meetings ago. Could you clarify what the position is on your recall for Ward 1, of which there was no explanation given on that date to that gentleman. There is information to quantify what he stated. If you live in the city of Wayne, you should register and file in the city of Wayne, I believe that. And you should have the documents to follow it, as long as your water bill is up to date. So how many people are running? What is the proper process for filling this vacancy on your recall? And are you up to date with the election boards and going to be sending out absentee ballots? A lot of people would like to know about it, and some people feel that they are being infringed by saying they cannot run for this office because they live in a different district. Yet Mr. Gabriel is sitting there as an appointee. We listened through his an appointment, and Mr. Sutton, who is the fourth, who is not serving us anymore. We've had a lot of vacancies here, vacancies filling vacancies. It's getting a Confucius thing, and so I think it'd be a nice thing to put it on the agenda, bring the public up to date. What ward is what ward? You have your names on here, who you are, but it doesn't signify which ward you are. And I think it would be most appropriate. Last 25 years, I had a situation and I was able to identify with a person. We didn't have wards. We just had friendly, interested council people that wanted to move a city forward. So I would recommend that you have your ward number that identifies you so the people could identify with you to ask you to get off your and get in a city vehicle and spend some city gas and come out and see what the people say is not hogwash. Sometimes it's very true. And this way you would have a chance also to ride on our beautiful roads and buy some new tires. And thank you very much for that great timer. 19 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Anyone else? Yes.
Good evening again. Mike McDermott, 652 Forest Street. Couple of comments here. One, I do think that when we have the opportunity to ask people whether it is from OEM or whether it is any special guest or speaker up here, that the 3-minute time limit should not be running, and I think that the residents should get to ask all their questions. I think when we have citizens' comments here, if you want to run the 3-minute timer, that's fine, but I think when we have guests here and there are questions and needed follow-up, I don't think we need to be running an arbitrary 3-minute timer. The second thing I wanted to say is that I am, as some of you may know and some of you may have received in your mailboxes or seen me at your door knocking, candidate for state representative here in the city of Wayne. And tonight we all listened to the budget report and the future fiscal outlook for the city. And while we're improving, we are not where we need to be. For 2017, we are $591,000 in the hole. And the biggest reason is because the state of Michigan has absconded from helping all of us.
You're addressing the council here.
They have absconded from municipal revenue sharing here in the state of Michigan and giving the city of Wayne the resources that it needs to succeed. So, yes, we're closing our budget shortfall by not filling departments, by selling off our parks, by giving our police and fire and public safety less resources. So, when people come up here and they get angry at the mayor and they get angry at the council, I understand why you're frustrated and why you're angry, but I think where you really need to direct that anger and that frustration is at the state of Michigan for absconding from its duty, from funding municipalities and giving us the resources that we need, giving the city of Wayne the resources that it needs to ultimately find some long-term fiscal stability, so it's not all about cuts and it's not all about taking away from public safety and selling parks and not filling needed vacancies in city departments. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Yes.
Hi, Eric Clearman of Winifred. I wanted to speak a little bit more about the recall. I was looking into that. We had 4 recalls initially, but as it turns out in Michigan, you can't recall somebody the first year in their office or the last year they're in office for 4-year term. Except for Councilman Sanders, everybody is within the last year of their office, so 3 of those recalls were pretty much pointless. It was just lip service.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Councilman Sanders goes, he's the only one who's still in his...
Please, could we just keep
I'm
this...
sorry, the timer's running here.
Can you hold the timer?
For what purpose?
I do not want any slamming of any of these people that are up here right now. Any of us. We were all elected by the people and the public. Right. You will have your turn to do what you want to do on May 8th, but please, just keep it down to information that is pertinent, not people's names, and not being nasty to people sitting up here.
I'm not sure how I was being nasty to anybody or using anyone's name here.
Continue.
So, point was, 3 of the 4 recalls were for people who can't be recalled anyway.
Yes.
They were within their last year. And the 4th recall is for somebody who isn't in the extra year that they were voted for. In other words, the terms all get extended. his term's extended from 2019 to 2020, not 2017 to 2018. So he's running in his original term still, not his extended term. Yet everyone wants to recall him, nobody wants to recall the other three. It seems kind of odd. And I asked the one person who's running who isn't the person being recalled, why are you running? They had no answer. They shrugged, they smiled. So, curious, why are they running? At this point, we're talking about saving money and not having expenses we don't need. Yet we're having a special recall election to elect one of two people who's already up here. No matter what happens, one of the two people already sitting up here is going to still be sitting up here. It seems like a phenomenal waste of money. And if that person was to step down, then Chris would still have the position he had. We'd be done with all this and we'd save $40,000 according to what we said we were saving when we extended the terms. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Fisher?
Len Fisher, Weatherford Street. First, let me just say that 2 years ago we heard the reports that the city was in dire straits and all was lost, and the only way to save the city was to pass an extremely large tax increase, which was defeated. Since then, from what I heard tonight, what I understand that I heard tonight is belts have been tightened, decisions have been made, people have been asked to sacrifice, and our city manager, who was hired to do the job, has done the job. She has managed the city better than it had been in the past, and she has turned it around and caused us to have less of a dire situation than we had 2 years ago. 2 years ago, when it was told to us that we couldn't make it without the large tax increase, and I want to publicly thank her for doing that and for working very diligently to bring about the change that we're seeing that has been made and the progress that is going forward. Thank you, Lisa. The other thing is today at the Rotary meeting, a couple things came up. There's an effort to secure trees to plant around the city, and I thought, wow, what a great idea. And I thought I would get up here tonight and encourage other residents to look into securing trees, approaching the appropriate bodies that would approve those tree plantings and increase it. We have an Arbor Day coming up, and what a great idea. The other thing that came up in the Rotary meeting was the special election is going to be held on a school day. And there was questions about, since there's going to be school and children in the schools at the same time that the public's going to be coming into the building, is there special consideration for security of the children? Is there, are doors going to be locked, or is there going to be monitors and whatnot? So I would ask the council to look into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Yes, Mr. Amos.
Council, Madam Mayor, Vern Amos. I live on Stellwagen. It hasn't been brought up in some time, but I would like to know if we're continuing with the property assessments and whatnot for future sale, like of hype. Did we ever get a quote or an estimate of what that property value is, what we could market it for? And then my second issue is, I would like to let the public know that there are job openings in this city, in particular crossing guards. We are in dire need of substitute crossing guards, and it pays pretty good pay for a half hour's worth of work in the morning and a half hour in the afternoon. Although the weather doesn't always cooperate, but it is a decent job and you can make some pretty good money at it if you're a retiree or somebody that's just looking for something part-time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, okay. We have closed comments. Next item.
That would be comments from members of the City Council. Oh, items from the next agenda. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to have the recommendation and the proposed ordinance from the administrative team on medical marijuana with a vote on that on the next agenda, please. Also, I would like to request consideration and discussion on a Parks Committee put on the next meeting.
Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I'd also like to request a discussion on rules and procedure and council agenda layout as well.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? No? All right. Okay. Next item.
Our comments from members of the City Council. Sorry.
Yes. Councilman Porter.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Sanders.
Yeah, I have three things. You know, everybody uses their cell phone these days, and often that's their computer. I'm curious to find out if we can ask the administration to have our IT guy looking at perhaps, I don't know, I wouldn't say abandoning the city website, but creating a app for the city of Wayne. I know the Wayne West End School District has it, and they directly communicate with everybody through that app. And I think it's a way, kind of like a Nixle kind of thing. I don't know if it's cost prohibitive, or if it's maybe cheaper in the long run, like penny wise, pound foolish. If we can look at that. Along with what Councilman Porter said, because a long time ago when we had our first study session, geez, it was probably after a couple months after we first got elected, we talked about, I suggested a Parks Committee as well, and to create a 501(c)(3). And I thought, you know, because we were, during our retreat the other day with MML, we discussed about ways of doing things. Because I know the city uses the Rotary, and they've been very gracious to allow us to utilize their 501(c) to do things in the city. I'm curious to find out if it's A, against the law, and if not, if we can utilize the city attorney for groups who are volunteering, whether a Parks Committee or maybe even Wayne Neighborhood Discussion or Wayne Neighborhood Watch Patrol, if they wanted to organize as a 501(c) to be able to do things, if we can utilize them to help them help us. And finally, if we can have a report sent to us, or maybe for the next meeting, and I hate to bring up the recall, but if the recall is successful, could we have a report to whether the city council would be required to appoint somebody, or is it within the state purveyance or the city charter that the time frame is such that they could leave the seat vacant?
Okay.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilman Webster.
Just two things tonight. For those of you who haven't had a chance to visit Powers Woodcrafts over on Glenwood, I would just suggest that everybody go pay them a visit. It's a family-owned business. They're a great couple. I've had the chance to go in there a few times, and they've been more than helpful each time I've gone in there. So just check them out. I mean, they're a very small business. They're not a very big shop, but they have a lot of great things to offer. So please go out and support them. I know they would support it. There's been a lot of people out asking, you know, if we're going to talk about the recall up here. Personally, I don't think it's really appropriate for us to talk about it up here. I think we need to stay up here and stay focused on the business at hand. If you want to talk about it outside of here, that's one thing, but I think we just need to stay focused on the city and its business and doing what we need to do for the city. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Gabriel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing tonight.
Councilman Racy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just that this Saturday at Hype will be the dueling piano event put on by the Rotary. There are still tickets available. They're $20 a piece, or a table of 10 for $180. It's a really good time. It's the big fundraiser for the Rotary, and that money goes back into scholarships and making things happen in our community that we wouldn't happen otherwise. So if you could come out and support the Rotary this weekend, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I would really be remiss if I didn't say thank you, Lisa, because I must admit that if it wasn't for the progress that we have seen in the last couple of years with the budget, and yes, we've had our struggles here, and that's okay. I'm good with that because of that, we've been able to carve out the right direction financially for us and for everybody in this community. And that's important to point out. We didn't all just fold in one direction and march in one direction. No, we had a battle. We tried to determine where we were going to go, carve our future. And I would be remiss to not say, yes, you are a part of that. And I remember, almost 3 years ago where we were at. There was a lot of clouds, at least we're starting to see some break in the clouds. We still got some ways to go, of course. We always will. But at least we're going in the right direction. And that's a big positive note for this community. And I see times where sunshine comes through, and I see just in some of the upcoming events that I'm already my ear is being pulled to that are coming up this summer, and these are good indications why Wayne is doing much better than it did 3 years ago. So I think we all need to kind of say, hey, chill out a little bit, let's remain civil, we're going to get through this. And I also want to bring up about the mayor and I, we went to Dorsey School's graduation for the practical nurses class, their first practical nurses class graduating. And I'll tell you what, it's one class act of a career campus that we have in our community. And for those that have young kids that want to kind of steer their kids into a career to provide for themselves in the future, and that's a necessity thing today, most certainly check out Dorsey Schools. They provide you with information about grants to assist them to go through school, pay possibly all of it. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Great facility. They have a lot of opportunities there. I just wanted to call them out. It was great to be able to be part of it as well. With that, I think that's my 3 minutes, isn't it? 3 minutes, kind of the 3-word day here. But thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to say to everyone, yes, 3 years ago we did talk about how dire it was. And today, in my mind, we are moving forward, but we're still stagnant. Our police department is half of the strength that it was at. We have a very difficult time trying to hire police officers because of the financial situation that we are in. We still only have 21 officers. We're budgeted for 22. We would like more. Our equipment is in dire need of being replaced, which we do not have the funds to do that. So yes, we are holding our own. We're moving forward, but it's at a snail's pace. And people can say that it's good, but if you look around really at the streets, the sidewalks, things that you want, your parks, curbside recycling, all of that costs money that we don't have. We're keeping our head, we're keeping the wolves at bay. But we still need to be frugal, and we do need to try and get more police officers here. And that will only happen if we as a community can come together and act civil to each other, and also look at down the road, we may have to ask some type of an authority down the road or something. But folks, this is going to take us another 20 years to get out of where we were. It's not going to happen overnight. So yes, there is a rainbow there, but there's no gold pot at the end of that rainbow right now for us. So thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
It's been moved. All in favor?
Aye.